Hey guys, Chris Ramsay here, obviously. The reason I did this video is because I know a lot of you guys have some questions, and I do receive quite a few messages a day, comments, things like that from a lot of you guys. I'm truly grateful, and I don't mean to be some elitist asshole who doesn't respond, but a lot of them are the same type questions, and I don't obviously have all day long to just text people back answers. I wish I did, but I really don't. So this is a great way for me to answer a lot of your questions, and hopefully some new questions. So without further ado, let's get into them. First question from Simon Sayed on Twitter. What do you do to get inspired to create a new trick, effect, or variation? I think that's a very valid question, but I do not think there's one answer to that. I think the one thing that inspires me most to create is creating itself. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it seems like when I do get into a creative process, and I can get inspired by many things, and I'm sure a lot of creators are the same, by a movie I watch, by someone I've spoken to, by an effect I've seen, or a happy accident, dropping the cards a certain way, etc. So I do think there's a lot of different things that you can grab inspiration from. However, creativity, I think, is a real muscle, and the more you start dabbling in being creative, whether it's in art, whether it's in any type of art form, music, or drawing, painting, whatever it is, I think the more you create, the more your mind sort of opens to creating more, and ideas start coming in much easier. And I think that's the real secret to creativity. I think just starting to create, even if what you're doing isn't the best, you have to go through the crappy stages of creativity to get to the good ones, and that's just common sense. A lot of people give up before they get there and say, I'm just not a creative person. I think everybody within them has some type of creativity. The outlet might be different, but I think once you find your proper outlet, creating can become real fun, real inspiring, and it generates more creativity. So I hope that answers your question. I did receive some questions about sort of salary, my income, how many downloads I sold, things of that nature. I'm not going to get into those for obvious reasons. I don't think that that's something anyone should share with anybody other than close friends and family. But thank you for taking an interest to that. AJNet2 on Instagram, who asks, what's your favorite tattoo? One that I had done not too long ago I really like, which is this here. Let's see if the camera can see that. So this one, 9 3/4, obviously inspired by platform 9 3/4 from Harry Potter. For those of you that don't know, I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. I'm a big fat nerd. Love Harry Potter. No homo. And read all the books, so I think that one to me, holds a special place in my heart. Hope that answers your question. Frankie5Aces on Instagram, who asks, or who says, let's see the tats. Thanks for the interest. Obviously, I'm not going to show you all my tattoos on camera. I think a lot of them are in a lot of my pictures and stuff, and I'm not necessarily comfortable talking about all of them, not because they're touchy or anything. I just think tattoos are a very personal thing. I think it's kind of taboo to ask people about their tattoos. I don't mind talking about some of them, or I don't mind showing them to you in person if that's something that ever happens. It's cool too. Just on sort of social media platform, I don't feel like getting into that whole, delving into that whole personal aspect of my life. So, but thanks for taking an interest. AJNet, another question, asks, would you rather go without facial hair or go without tattoos? I would rather go without living. This is a question that I get asked quite frequently by JGabor4 on Instagram, who asks, what are your favorite go-to impromptu card and non-card effects? That's a very good question, and I think it's quite interesting because I think everybody has their own style. Everybody's got their own sort of go-to routines, and some of the stuff that I do, other magicians will be like, I would never perform that, and vice versa. So I don't mind sharing a few things that I do on the fly with you guys. Just know that whatever you guys choose to do, don't do it because someone else is doing it. Do it because it fits your style, or because you're comfortable with it, or because you've routined it in a way that has some comedy in it, or however you like to present your effect. But just make it authentic to you, and don't do it because someone else does it. The one effect that I really, really love doing with a deck of cards is two-card Monty. I first seen David Blaine do that, obviously, on TV, and it really inspired me. I think I watched that trick like 20 times to figure it out, and once I started doing it, I mean, I've been doing it for, I don't know, 10 years, and I've gotten to the point where I've added my own touches to it, I've added my own impossible moments to it, my own jokes to it, my own stories, and it's just become a real part of my own personality when I perform this. So it's a favorite effect of mine, and I love doing it for those reasons. I would say non-card tricks, I do love ring magic. So if you follow my Instagram and stuff, I do a lot of ring magic. One of my favorite pieces is, I like ring to shoulder, ring to the back of hand, or ring to impossible location, like nest of wallets, that type of thing, which isn't really impromptu. But the one impromptu thing I do like is On Off by Nicholas Lawrence. I really love that trick, and performed in the right setting, in the right way, to the right people, you get some crazy reactions. People actually think you're pulling your finger off, which is funny to me because, you know, when we were kids, your grandpa or your uncle, you know, would take his finger apart. We'd always be like, yeah, we know how that's done. So this is the sort of 2.0 adult version of that trick, which fools adults, which is great. So I like that trick. I do also like color changing card in spectator's hand. Once again, a super simple effect, very easy to do, and I do a variation which Chris Mayhew taught me, which uses two cards. I'm not going to get into that, but I like doing that one as well. I think, to sum it up, I think two-card Monty is probably my favorite thing to do with a deck of cards that's borrowed. Question from JustMagic_Marco on Instagram, who asks, boobs or ass? See, I think that's a pretty sexist question, and I'm not sure exactly how to answer, but ass. Yeah, definitely ass. Question here, which was asked a few times by James Cranberry on Instagram, who asks, will you ever do a tutorial on epidural? So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a flourish I came up with, and yes, I promised you a tutorial and didn't end up doing it. So yes, when? I don't know, I'm sorry. I'm lazy and I have other things on my mind. Alright, I got a few questions from a good friend of mine, Aviv, who I met for the first time at CardistryCon. If you don't know Aviv, check his stuff out. He's a really genuinely nice guy, and he's an amazing flourisher. So Aviv asks, when did you start doing what you do? What made you start, and when did you decide to take it seriously? So I started doing what I do. So magic, I started doing that at a young age. I didn't join the magic club as a kid or do any of that stuff. But I would say I've always dabbled with cards, and it was at the age of around 21 I started working at a bar, and I started performing the tricks that I knew how to do, which was probably maybe a dozen tricks. And that's where I met someone who would come to the bar every Friday, and he would drop $50 on the table. And he would say, if you can do 3 tricks to me, because he knew I did magic, he loved some of the stuff I did. If you can do 3 tricks to me and my friends, I'll give you $50 tip. And for me, that was a lot of money. $50 tip is a great tip. It made my night. So it would sort of inspire me every week to go back with new material. And I think from then on, the sort of creative spark took hold of me, as well as the magic bug. And it wasn't until a few years later that I really started reading books and delving into the art form a little more seriously, but I think that's where the whole thing sort of ignited. What do you feel like is the most usual, biggest problem in any magician in magic today? One of the largest problems today, in today's day and age, is self-promotion, branding, and marketing. I think a lot of magicians don't know how to brand themselves, market themselves, or promote themselves in an authentic way, in a way that stays true to who they are. So I've always been a firm believer that authenticity is greater than originality, and I think a lot of people forget that they have to be themselves, and they strive to be so original that they end up being just like everyone else, which is ironic. A good example of this is if you look through like profile pictures of magicians, like they're always wearing like a black shirt, a red tie, and holding fire, you know, or they have a card palmed here, and they're doing this, and it's all the same, right? So I think one of the biggest problems is that, is it a major problem? Depends how you look at it, right? I have Ulufulaki. Hope I'm definitely butchering that name. Can you rap some bars written by you? So for those of you that don't know, I used to rap. Used to be in the rap game. Actually for like 10 years. Did a lot of shows in the area. Put out a CD. Was on some mixtapes and stuff. So here goes. Here's some bars from me. Become a living legacy who never lived to see 70. I'll be mentally ill and I'll still be spilling my poetry cleverly. Endeavor heroically into several colonies globally, but hopefully they'll follow me openly while I'm properly quoting a prophecy philosophically spoken like Socrates, only vocally dropping it sloppily. Happily living now that rapping is rapidly risen to capture life in rhythm like a light in a prism. I write what I'm given or life will get as dull as a knife in a prison. Word. Jan Zubix on Instagram who asks, what's your favorite deck? And hard to say, but I think this is my favorite deck of cards, and I'm so sad because I do only have one of these. This is the vintage studs. Look how deep, dark, and rich blue they are. They come in this old box. I found this at a yard sale for 50 cents. It will never happen again. The finish is so weird and abnormal. They don't make them like these anymore. They fan out so incredibly beautifully and they last you a lifetime. So I play with them literally for like 5 minutes a day and put them right back in the box. That's how much I love them. So old vintage blue studs. The vintage ones, like the old ones. Adam Sillard asks, how would you describe magic? That is to say, the perception that you have on it, and why do you love it? Wow. Adam, that's a really deep question. How would I describe magic? And I don't think there's any one way to describe magic as a whole other than saying magic is an art form consisting of illusion. Whether it's psychological illusion or visual or auditory, I think it's using that and creating an art form with it. So I think that's the best answer that I could come up with. And as for why I love it, I think for those exact reasons. It's a beautiful art form. It's limitless, and I'm someone who loves learning. I'm someone who loves trying new things, and to know that there is no cap to what you can learn, that you can learn magic for 100 years and not learn everything, I think that's a beautiful thing to me, knowing that there is no end. And it's kind of really inspiring to me, as it would be daunting to some people. I think I find a real beauty in it, knowing that I won't know everything and it's impossible for me to know everything, but I can just keep striving to keep learning, keep achieving more, and set more goals. So that's why I love magic. Gabriel Reed 99 asks, how often do you practice and study your routines before performing them? I think I practice them just enough to perform them. And that's not a straight up answer, but some moves and routines I might be more comfortable performing earlier than others for many different reasons. But I think the important thing here is to remember that theory and the knowledge of magic and the knowledge of the sleights and performing all the moves is just one part of practice. And so for me, performing for people is part of the practice. And so when you say how often do you practice before you perform, it's all the same to me. And practicing means messing up, means coming up with new lines or new jokes or new patter. Practice means talking to people and introducing an effect, or trying to get a reaction out of the effect, using words, using psychology, and that's all part of practice. So I think I do the moves and the routines well enough that I can feel comfortable performing them, and then I practice performing. This is a question that I do receive from time to time, actually more often than any other question, is what do I use to edit my Instagram videos, to edit my YouTube videos, to edit my pictures? What type of music do I use? Where do I get my music? So that's a difficult question for me to answer, because I could very well tell you what I use. That's not gonna help you. It's like if you said, what deck do you use to perform this routine? And and I give you the deck of cards, and then you try to perform the routine, and you won't succeed, because it isn't about the camera I use, the lens I use, the program I use, what I use to export, to edit. It's about how you do those things. So whether it's using your iPhone, or whether it's, obviously I think a good quality camera, so a good DSLR, whether it's a 60D or a 5D or whatever, I think all of those can be used, intelligently. As for the editing programs, there are so many editing programs that basically do the same thing. It's an Instagram video, it's 15 seconds. How much can you possibly edit? Change the colors around a little bit, chop it up, put some music to it. So, Final Cut Pro is what I use, Pro or Final Cut X, if that helps any of you. And I do film on my DSLR and then upload to Instagram. My pictures as well, most of them are done with DSLR nowadays. They used to be done with my iPhone, and I've just fell in love with photography so much that after I've taken pictures with a DSLR, it's hard for me to go back to an iPhone. But once again, it's about what you do with the picture, the type of exposure and aperture you get, the lenses you use. It's more than just what to use, it's when to use those things as well. So I know that's a really completely vague answer. As for the music, I get a lot of my music on YouTube. So a lot of it, I find it on YouTube, and then I go to SoundCloud. So SoundCloud is a great place where independent artists can share their music, their remixes, their contributions. I really like trap music nowadays. I'm really into that, hip hop, stuff like that. So check out SoundCloud. I think that's pretty much it. So I hope that helps you out. I hope that answers all the questions about what I use to edit. Other than that, it's just trial and error. You got to kind of figure it out, man. And I think once you've devoted enough time to it like I have, you'll eventually find the right path and find what suits you. Adam Khalifa, you're on point, bro. Can you give us any news or insight in your upcoming deck? No. But there is a deck upcoming, and I am so excited. I love it so much. I hope you guys are going to love it. But I really don't care if you don't love it, because I love it so much. That's just why I'm doing it. So thanks for taking interest, Adam, and I'll hopefully be able to share some news with you guys soon enough, maybe even a little bit of a teaser. Weston Halal, who I met at MagicCon, super nice, super chill dude, asks, where do you feel the turning point in your magic career was? And that's a really good question. I think the turning point in my professional career was bartending. And I think the turning point in my sort of creative career, maybe that's what you're asking, was definitely Praxis. I released Praxis. There's a lot of good reviews on it. A lot of people really dug it, and I think from then on, it sort of gave me this nice little platform to be able to share everything else I had, on my mind. So I think that was really the turning point. So thanks for that. What type of gigs do you usually perform at, and what tricks do you usually perform at them? So as for the tricks, I love OmniDeck, Nesta wallets. I'm a big fan of, I do ambitious card routine as well. I love using loops. So I know these are all really counterintuitive to what you might think that I perform, like these heavy sleights and gigs, but I perform what's commercial, what I'm comfortable enough doing while speaking and making people laugh and, just having a good time. So as long as I can do that and concentrate on what I'm doing, then I think that's what I'll use. So what else? I always carry one normal deck of cards with me, and I carry one gimmick deck. So the gimmick deck, for instance, might sometimes be an invisible deck. It might be Industrial Revelation by JBD Grant, which is an amazing effect. It's really heavy to walk around with. Omni deck. So I'll always have that sort of backup insane trick. And so I love, obviously handing out a deck of cards to a spectator is the greatest thing you could possibly do. Having them shuffle it's even better. And then bringing in sort of a gimmicked effect, I think just really caps it off nicely. So I think those are the types of tricks I do. The venues that I perform at are anything from private parties to corporate events. I don't do any stage. I think the only stage that I've ever done in my whole life was on Wizard Wars with Spidey, which was really cool. And it really triggered something within me to say that I really want to do some more stage. And so right now I'm working on a stage show that I'm writing, sort of like a half-hour, 45-minute comedy set involving, obviously magic. And that'll be my first stage experience. But yeah, normally just walk around, parties, weddings, that type of thing. Lee McKenzie. This is a great question, Lee. And I have a feeling you've asked this to other people because this is such a great question. What top 3 things would you do with your life and time on Earth if you knew you could not fail? So, to be honest, Lee, I need to give that question a lot more thought than just on the spot because I really like that question. And I think it's an important one as well. And I think one of those I'm actually doing today, which is just creating and sharing magic and performing. And the other ones, I'll have to get back to you, but thanks for the thought. Jonathan Rist asks, what do I have to do to get inside of you? Well, Jonathan, if you have to ask, it'll never happen. Question from my friend Ollie Mealing, who says, would you rather go to battle against one horse-sized duck or 50 duck-sized horses? Ducks are creepy as hell, dude. Like, you think about it, like they snap at you and they're so little. I think I would rather do 50 duck-sized horses. I think I'm less afraid of horses than ducks. A giant duck is terrifying. Alright guys, that about wraps it up. Thank you so much. I think if I answer any more questions, it's going to make this video completely redundant. So I thank you so much, all of you. I think in the last 24 hours I've had, over 100 questions being thrown my way. So I'm super grateful to have this kind of platform to be able to share what I love doing with you guys. And I'm really grateful that you guys actually like what I do enough to, ask me questions about it. So as always, thank you so much for taking an interest into what I do. And if you're ever at a convention where I'm at, I'll be at Magic Live, by the way, in August. If you're ever there and you want to hang out, you got some questions you want to ask me in person, you just want to jam, I'm all for it, man. Let's jam, let's hang out, not a problem at all. So don't be shy in person, whatever, dude. If you want to just chill, come see me and we'll make it happen. So thanks once again. Thanks for following me. Thanks for everything you guys allow me to do. And I look forward to seeing your responses to this video, and hopefully in the future we'll do another one if you guys are interested enough. So take care, thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Peace.